BBC News at midday. Rail services have ground to a halt in parts of the country as a fresh wave of strikes begins in the industry's long-running dispute over pay, jobs and conditions. Members of the drivers' union ASLEF walked out this morning, leaving several operators such as Avanti West Coast, Cross Country, Northern and Thameslink unable to run any trains. Other rail operators have limited services in place. ASLEF's General Secretary Mick Whelan said there had been zero progress and negotiations were at a standstill. But Stuart Meek from South Western Railway disagrees.
The negotiations are happening on a national level with all train operating companies. What we would do, of course, is encourage the trade union to get back and have a discussion about these offers and try and put them to their members so we can move forward and stop the disruption to passengers. Me and my colleagues, we're career railway people. We want people on the trains, not in cars, for various reasons, of course, not least for the impact on the environment.
These rail passengers in the town of Flint are frustrated by the continuing dispute.
I understand why it's happening, and I do think it's important for them to strike, but I think in situations just like this it can be quite frustrating for passengers, especially when the rail prices are constantly going up.
Just one more thing, isn't it? We tried to go to the Christmas markets in Manchester last year, and we tried, and those strikes, and then we tried to make up for it a few days later, strikes again.
The UN War Crimes Tribunal at The Hague has just increased the prison sentences of two top former Serbian state security officials, Jovica Stanisic and Franko Simatovic, after a legal process lasting 2 decades. They'll now serve 15 years instead of 12. It's the last major verdict to be delivered by the UN War Crimes Court for the former Yugoslavia. Our correspondent Anna Holligan is at The Hague.
These two men created this state security unit, which was then responsible for training and funding the groups which were carrying out the atrocities. So among them, they've been found guilty of murder, forcible transfer, deportation, inhumane acts. The reason this matters so much, the reason these two men in particular matter so much, is because they tied the Serbian state infrastructure to the crimes committed, the ethnic cleansing of Bosnian Muslims during this conflict.
Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been granted bail for another 3 days by a court in Islamabad, which is hearing 8 cases against him. Mr. Khan has accused Pakistan's military of forcing him from office and says the charges against him are politically motivated. A cabinet minister has said documents will only be disclosed to the COVID inquiry where it is appropriate, as the deadline nears for all of Boris Johnson's unredacted WhatsApp messages and diaries to be handed over. Yesterday, the Cabinet Office was given an extra 48 hours to provide all the information requested by the chair of the inquiry, Baroness Hallett. The government has so far resisted, insisting some of the material is irrelevant. The Work and Pensions Secretary, Mel Stride, was asked whether the government might take legal action.
It's a matter for the Cabinet Office and the individuals involved as to what is sent over to the inquiry. We've already released, incidentally, 55,000 documents, 8 witness statements. Given that there's a deadline tomorrow at 4 o'clock, I think we need to wait and see what happens as to what is delivered and whether that satisfies the inquiry.
The CBI says it has serious work to do as it publishes a plan to turn the organisation around after it was rocked by allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct. Under the proposals, the current president, Brian McBride, will step down early and the search for his successor will be sped up so they're in post by next year. The organisation will also stop late-night parties and hire a refreshed board. A new survey says the presence of pine martens in Northern Ireland has almost doubled in the past 5 years. The organisation, Ulster Wildlife, says the cat-sized mammals are undergoing a phenomenal resurgence. BBC News.